Start in 10 seconds.
Go ahead.
Well, first thing I want to say to the audience is this shirt that I seem to be wearing all the time, it does get washed, but I wear it because it's white and it represents my purity. The first joke. All right, I have a client that I'd like to talk about. You could call him a patient, but to me they're all just clients. I'm not a healer or somebody's going to cure anything, so I'd never call myself that kind of a doctor. But I can get him to reveal stuff about himself. It's just something about our dynamic that encourages him to talk to me about his wildest stuff. And so he's kind of a depressed person, more than kind of depressed. He says he's been depressed all of his life, but he's constantly reinforcing his depression by getting involved with people who hurt him or use him or betray him or do some other negative thing, so that he's always in a condition where he calls it his fundamental conatus, his deep drive to love, is being thrown back upon him and turned bitter, so that his love energy, which one great psychologist, Rollo May, would call a daemon. Eros is a daemon. It's a winged spirit. But because it's hurt, and damaged, and betrayed, and all the rest, used, and all that, it becomes like a demon. The daemon grows barbs out of his wings. He grows horns. His teeth become fangs. His beautiful white wings become black, and he becomes the shadow that Jordan Peterson talks about, and which I have subscribed to for more than 60 years, since I began reading Jung as a teenager. And what has happened to him is that he lives a life where he realizes that it is a dead-end life. He says everybody's life is dead-end if it's like his, where there is no solace, there is no consolation, and he also realizes at that point that he has no control over this. No matter what he's ever done, no matter what path he's ever taken, it has always led to the same kind of experience. So he can lament all his experiences and say that they didn't happen, but if they hadn't happened, other experiences would have happened, and they would have led him to the same depressive condition, because his destiny was created early in his life in combination with the type of dynamic with which he was born. He's a rather sensitive person, very sensitive, rather bright when he was young, but then twisted because of bad conditioning, hurt, made to hide and become separated, out of the body to a good extent, extremely tense physically, always waiting for the next attack, the next beating, the next condemnation. And thus, there he is now, and he's virtually my age, and he says that he's in a relationship with a woman who does all that to him. And he says he's never been able to escape it. And so what can he turn to? And I tell him openly, I can't fix you. And he says, I know you can't fix me, but what can I do? And I sat with him for a long time, and we just looked at each other. And then the session ended, and he came back again, and we're still dealing with the question. And I'm waiting for him to come up with the answer, because I'm not going to tell him what he's supposed to do. And so finally, after the third silent session, he came to me and said, I've found the only thing I know to do. And I said, explain yourself. And so he began. He said, as you know, my point of view of this life is a lot like your own, meaning you look to the heart of everything. and so do I. And I looked at the heart of my own existence, and I think that it, I can make a very strong case, he said, that the heart of my existence is the entire subatomic world, where there's no separation. The whole subatomic world is like my ocean, and I am a bubble on the ocean with all these other bubbles. This is very familiar to my viewers. And he said, yet I truly believe intellectually that my real substantial existence is found in the ocean and not in this bubble. And so I said, and you've been able to come up with something to do, since you realize a very important reality. And he said, the only thing that I can think of doing is to speak to the foundation of my existence. And he said that since I was brought up as a Catholic, and I've been exposed to so much of this Jesus mythos, that I've come to my own conclusion about what that all is. I agree with Alan Watts and D.T. Suzuki and many of the other Zen people, Ken Wilber, that this person that existed a couple of thousand years ago realized that he himself was cosmic consciousness. He was not limited in his identity to this very false identity, which is based upon memories, which, as the scientists and the mystics will tell us, are completely invalid. They're just memories of consciousness being in a certain situation, but they create a false substantial being, an ego. When the fact is, he says, it is all just a witnessing. And so I speak to that which is at the heart of the witnessing. I call it by its name. I call it by the name I learned in my religion. But I know that the name is a limitation. It's not just a person. It's way beyond anything that we could understand. It's like comparing a person and his brilliance to the sun itself. And so, to me, he is the sun. I don't know if he'll respond to me. He said, he's a good guy, and I told him, don't come back until you get some answers, unless you really just want to sit here and look at me. Because I can't teach you anything, I told him. Unless you just feel like hanging out with somebody who's a friend. At that, he paid me for the 4 sessions. This is very nice. And I'm waiting for him to come back to see if he's had a miracle in his life. Because he knows the only miracle that could come out of his prayer to this foundation of his existence, the only real miracle would be a miracle of the transformation of the heart. All the rest, he says, and I fully concur, is that anything else is just a manipulation of conditions, and that's what we call magic. The only real miracle is the transformation of the heart, which would change everything. I mean, imagine if this world suddenly grew a heart and stopped using others and torturing and slaughtering, and even the animals. And imagine if we cared about all sentient beings, how different this world would be. Imagine not being so damned alienated that people don't care, that they're creating great suffering, screaming pain in animals and other people. They don't care. They don't identify. They don't come out of themselves enough. They're so limited to that single bubble that is so delusional in thinking that it's separate from the other bubbles. I don't know what all the karma is. I'm not claiming there is a karma, but this guy and I agreed on all this, and his conclusion was to simply pray. I mean, basically, that's all he's really talking about. And he said the only problem he had was his idea of God was kind of like up in the air, up in the sky, way off. in the distance, he realizes this God, this version of God that he has is not way off in the distance. It's at the core of his life. And so he's basically asking himself to help himself in his great radical ignorance. And that's another topic from Free John, Adida. So that's a description of my latest guy. This guy pays me. He's wonderful.